All right. Welcome, 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 everybody, to another Sunday of When Black Women Gather. You guys are so wonderful to come out on what is so close to the end of summer. I know you could be doing other things on this last weekend or so I appreciate that you're here. We have a really interesting program today. The title of it is Shifting the Lens, a Womanist View of the Bible. And we try and hit on all kinds of subjects here at When Black Women Gather. And this is one that I think we probably have, I'm going to guess that some of us don't have an opinion on. And we're here to learn and get a new perspective. And others of us probably feel very strongly about the situation. I need everybody to mute unless you're talking, please. So anyway, our guest today has been with us before, and she is just exciting. So I'm going to bring her on screen with me. Yay. Hey, Vanessa.
Hello, now I'm unmuted.
Okay, how are you? Shall I call you Reverend, or can I just call you Vanessa?
Just call me Vanessa.
Look, she got so many titles. She's a reverend, she's a lawyer, she's a conversationalist, she's a pastor. I don't know if there's the same as a pastor and a reverend. I kind of threw that out there, but I'm sure you'll educate me. But anyway, Vanessa, for most parts, is a friend of When Black Women Gather. She's been with us before, and I have thrown out the offer for people who have a topic or something that you want to share with us to please reach out, and she has. And she's here. So I think that we're all going to enjoy her. And if you have a topic that you want to discuss, hey, we want to hear from you too. But right now, we're going to give Vanessa the floor. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, and then she will tell you more about herself. She will tell you how she wants the conversation to go, whether or not she's just going to do a presentation and wait for you, and you all wait to engage, or she wants you to talk as we go along. And obviously, the chats. Please drop your information in the chats. Okay, so real quickly, I'm just going to tell you, you got the picture of her with the long list of stuff that she's done. She's a pastor, she's an educator, she's an author, scholar, activist, coach, strategist, storyteller, and conversationalist. That's a lot. She didn't put lawyer on that list, so I can ask her why in a minute. But very briefly, she is the lead pastor of the Church of Good Shepherd in Willingboro, New Jersey. She is ordained in the Interdenominational Church in 2004. She served on the ministerial board of Higher Ground Interdenominational Church until 2010. She then returned to the United Methodist Church, and she has since served as a senior pastor in the UMC since 2013, serving in both cross-racial and cross-cultural and historically African American appointments. She has been published and written many things, which I'm going to put a link in the chat to her bio, and you can look at that. She wants me to be sure and let you all know that she is founder and president of Sakona Incorporated, right? A nonprofit organization working for the elimination of healthcare disparity and the integrative healthcare solutions. A second career, the pastor was an executive in higher education and nonprofit organization. She has extensive experience in strategic management and planning, training, development, nonprofit formation, and management. We can use her here at When Black Women Gather. She has a wealth of talents and training. And she has a bachelor's of art in urban planning in community development from Howard, Rutgers University, and a JD also from Rutgers Law. I'm thinking that's Newark, right?
Yes.
Yes, I'm Camden, that's why I said that. And she has an MBA also from Rutgers. A master's of divinity with a focus on Hebrew, Bible, and Africana spirituality, and a master's of sacred theology with a concentration in Hebrew. Did I just read the same thing? No. Hebrew, Bible, global health, and integrative care from Drew University School of Theology. She has a lot, and she's currently working on yet another degree, a doctorate in medical humanities from Casperson School, also at Drew. So her other interests include transgenerational trauma and the intersection of race, religion, law, and medicine in her spare time. I don't know where she has spare time, but okay. And she enjoys entertaining, creating tablescapes, quilting, dancing, traveling, laughing with friends and family. And she is blessed to be the parent of two wonderful adult sons, one of whom she dropped off in Washington yesterday for the beginning of a new career. So I am so excited to hear your conversation. I am going to bow out and hand it all over to you and everyone. This is an interactive conversation. As always, we're respectful of our guests, which I don't ever need to tell you all. No opinion is a wrong opinion, is your opinion. You're allowed to say whatever you want. Just be mindful of wanting to be heard. So say it in a way that it can be respectful and heard. And on that note, I thank you again, Vanessa, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. I've been on and off from the beginning, watching. I love these conversations. So I'm really excited about today. Whenever I hear my bio, it just amazes me. And I forgot to tell you, don't read all of it, because sometimes it can, it just reminds me of how old I am and how many jobs I had to have to survive. So it's like, yeah, I've been around for a long time and I had a lot of jobs, and it was all about survival. But thank you again for having me. Today, I'm going to talk about my journey, my spiritual journey, which is in some ways full circle, in other ways not. It's been more of a spiral going upward. And I thought about doing this when you had a speaker a couple of months ago who talked about the Bible and talked from the perspective of Blacks or Africans in the Bible, the Africana presence. And someone asked a question about women in the Bible, and we started talking about that. And I said that would be something that I would like to present. But I also want to present it in the context of my own spiritual journey and how I got to this place, because it's been a long time and we are shaped by all of our experiences, and all of my experiences kind of shaped me to put me in this space. So I'm going to share a PowerPoint with you. I'm going to kind of walk through my journey, which is going to be more conversational. During this journey, as I discuss this, you could feel free to stop me at any time to ask a question. And then I'm going to talk about women in the Bible. I'm going to use a few examples. I'm also going to key in on ways to look at the Bible that I was not familiar with growing up, and that I learned a lot of it in recent years, in recent 10 years or more. So I'm going to share now with you. And all of this, we start dealing, for me, to start dealing with the Bible and looking at it, how do we look at it a different way? How do we look at it in a way that's beneficial to us or to me? Let's see what, so I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey. That's a photograph I took when I was in South Africa. And so much of my life, I've always been fascinated with pathways and roads because it is really all a journey. I just want to comment quickly. I heard the conversation earlier about shopping and how one woman said you shop in 3, and someone else said they shop on sale, and someone said no. But I always do 2 for 1. So that's why I have a JD and an MBA. I found out that I was getting a JD and I could add on an MBA at no cost only for an additional 12 credits. So the JD MBA is a part of my 2 for 1 shopping experience. So you'll see that many of my degrees are multiples of 2, because I'm always trying to get 2 for 1 to maximize the time and the money. So I just want to talk now about my journey and the things that shaped my life. And when I start saying these things, the many things shaped my life, but these are the things that really stayed with me and really either in all cases, drove me closer to God or made me really question God. And question what is the role of God? What is the role of the church? And the first one is the Newark civil disturbances and the Newark riots of 1967. At that time, I was a young child. My aunt, we lived in Newark. My aunt was afraid, and she asked my mom to come down and to walk her back to our house. Because the men were locked out of town, the women were in town. And when I was walking down Avon Avenue, I saw the police officers shoot a man in the back who had taken a 6-pack of beer, not even a case, a 6-pack of beer. And they continued to shoot, and a little boy was shot as well. And I was a little child. And that image is something that has always stayed with me. And it was something that in one way drove me closer to God, because I really was afraid, but in another way made me question, where is God, that this could happen in our neighborhood, in our community. And it was really a moment that changed my life. And it's a question that I still ask myself when I see violence, the level of violence in this country against Black people, the level of violence against women, the level of violence against immigrants, the level of violence. We see a lot of violence. And so that is something that kind of stays with me. Another moment for me that shaped this journey, because I really want to give you a lot of context, was when the United Methodist Church was formed. My family has been Methodist since 1867, when they founded a Methodist church in Roper, North Carolina. When I was a child, I did not know that, but I knew that my mother really, really loved Methodism, and she loved church. Both of my parents really loved church. I grew up as a young child. I was in a church that was all Black. It was a former synagogue. There were no images in the church of Jesus or anything. So our world was for me as a child, very harmonious, very positive. Black church was beautiful for me, and it still is. And then the United Methodist Church formed. If you're familiar with Methodist history, or if you're not, I'll give you a little bit. The Methodist Church, the Methodist Episcopal Church, was the original Methodist church that came here, founded by John Wesley, and it broke off into 2 parts right before the Civil War: the Methodist Church South and the Methodist Episcopal, and they broke on the issue of slavery. The church reformed, and when they reformed again, it formed as a segregated church with a central jurisdiction, with all the Black churches worshiping together. Not until 1968, when they became the United Methodist Church, did the church actually integrate, which some people thought it was a good thing, other people thought it was a bad thing. I was too young to think anything until I understood that my church was one of the first churches to merge with a white church. And we merged, and this was in Newark, we merged with a church on the outskirts, the borderline of Newark, that was white. And for the first time in my worship space, I saw this huge stained glass window of a white Jesus. And in my mind, as a child, I was juxtapositioning the white Jesus with the image of the white police officer that shot this child. Shot the man, but also shot the child. So that was something that was always a question for me. Still love church, love the people, but the image did not resonate with me. So this is all a part of what's bringing me to this place now. And that's 68, so that was a while ago. One of the things that I always loved was reading the Bible and listening to commentary with my father. So my father had a certain way of looking at the Bible. He was not Methodist. He was a Seventh-day Christian, and he had traveled the world a bit, and he was very, very pro-Africa. And he would say, you have to read the Bible different, And so a lot of people in our family would say, oh, you're so wild, Wilson, oh, that's too much. But he was telling a truth at that point that some people didn't understand. And he talked a lot about the African a handprint and footprint in the Bible, and African culture shaping that whole document. Additionally, listening to my mom's story about our family, cultural, religious, and spiritual heritage. And that spiritual heritage was really important for me to understand, because in my family, we are people who dream dreams and see visions, and we are really locked into and tuned into a spiritual sense beyond the religious tradition, beyond the denomination, the spirituality, the prayer, the hearing, the connection with our ancestors is very, very important. When what I found is I was not learning about any of that in church. So then I was always in that quest, like, where's the space where we talk about this as well? I'm a descendant of two great-grandfathers who fought in the Civil War, Shadrach White and his wife Nellie, and Peter Downing and Permelia. And in our family, we tell those stories, and that their survival was hinged on their spirituality. Their survival was hinged on their ability to hear God. And that all then, it really had an impact on me, because again, going to church, we didn't really discuss that aspect. We told Bible stories, we had good Sunday school, we talked about the Spirit, but not really this impact of the Spirit and how the Spirit of God was here really protecting us as Black folks. I had a traumatic divorce, and I said preventable, because in the spiritual place in which my family dwells, I was warned not to get married, but I did anyway, because that's what I wanted to do. But it taught me this great lesson about the importance of the spiritual connection, the importance of being really locked into our ancestral heritage, locked into the wisdom of the elders. And it was a very interesting experience. I went to DO school. I did not want to go to DO school. I became a United Methodist pastor, and that's another story for another day, but I became a United Methodist pastor, and in order for me to maintain that position, I had to go to DO school. I didn't want to go on this quest to really find my identity in the church, my identity as a Black woman in this document, this Bible, this whole culture that was still very much patriarchal. Even if you're in a Ame church, Ame Zion or CME church, the culture is patriarchal. And if you're in a United Methodist church, then you're dealing with a whole lot of things, race, patriarchy. So I didn't want to go to DO school, but I was forced to go. And it was really God forcing me to go, because it wasn't what I expected. I thought they were going to teach me doctrine and theology, which I did not want to learn if it was traditional. However, the experience was different because it was scholarship. So Drew is a theological school, not a seminary. So seminaries teach the doctrine and theology and all of those things. But Drew was theological, and it was more the scholarship, and that's what I needed. Another point was when I went to South Africa. In 2017, I went to South Africa, and we went to look at spirituality, to look at different aspects of how religion played out in Africa. So we looked at indigenous religions, we looked at we worshiped with, so we didn't look at anything. We worshiped with indigenous religions. We met with Sangomas, and I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute and talk about the Sangoma and being diagnosed with breast cancer as well. At the same time, we met with Sangomas. But what was really striking to me is when we went to the Voortrekker Monument, and I'm gonna just stop the share, because if you wanna engage at this point, thank you, Newark Rebellion. Thank you, Jocelyn. At this point, we can engage for a moment, but I went to South Africa, and at that time, I was having like a lot of problems with my back, but I was also really trying to understand the religion. So we met with Sangomas, we met with we went to the Voortrekker Monument, and that for me was quite disturbing, because one day we went to a museum in Soweto. We went to the Hector Peterson Museum, and the images were devastating to see how the children were killed and shot in Soweto at the same time of the Newark Rebellion, Newark Civil Disturbance, Newark Riot at the same time. And so for me, I had an immediate connection and understanding. And again, my question is always, where's God in the midst of this? Then a couple of days later, we're at the Voortrekker Monument. And I see how they take the Exodus story, they turn it around, they use the Bible as a tool of oppression and to justify their being there. And for me, I'm saying, okay, we need to teach the Bible in a different way. We need to understand that it can be a tool of, it's a tool, no matter how you look at it. It could be a tool of oppression, it could be a tool of liberation, but what can I do to teach it in such a way that it remains a tool of liberation and that we expose it when it's being a tool of oppression? So that was very striking to me.
Vanessa?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Hey, go ahead.
This is Linda. I apologize for coming on late, but I just want to add, you used the word riot, and I just want to explain. You're right. In Newark, it was a rebellion and civil disturbance for people who didn't understand what was going on. So riot is generally with white young men engaging, or white men, who are probably intoxicated in many instances, sometimes not. And they destroy property, but they're never arrested by police. And you can look at what happens in the summertime in different beach communities. So I just wanted to use that. The other thing, since I wasn't there before Vanessa got started, I just want to add that Vanessa and I met online waiting to take the SAT. On a real line. We're actually outside. And like Vanessa, the rebellion of 67, and she was talking about how the guy got shot. And for me, for those who know me, I'm really into Newark. And I will tell you that everything I am is because of one, growing up in public housing, but particularly going back to Vanessa's point specifically, is having sharpshooters aiming in our house in 1967 and being told, shoot to kill. So if you want to understand me, then understand seeing sharpshooters on the roof, aiming in your building, and your mother telling you to get on the floor so they don't kill you. So, and she's right, that's major. And the other thing, Vanessa's going to laugh when I say it, but Vanessa, I happen to have two friends like Vanessa, and I consider myself a pagan. So see, I am actually supporting Vanessa in a real proud pagan, but Vanessa will tell you at some point, it's not about Eurocentric thinking, going back to our roots in the African continent. So if you could see it from that vantage point. On that note, Vanessa, go ahead. I just want to throw it in and make you laugh.
Well, thank you very much, Linda. And that you're right, that living through, and I use the term, I thought I used all three of them, but I try to use all three so that people will have an understanding and context. But living through that experience is something that shapes your life forever. And when I talk a little bit more about cancer, what we've learned now about cancer is that certain types of breast cancer, many types of breast cancer, are actually caused by these adverse childhood experiences that we go through. So many of us have, certain maladies and conditions, especially autoimmune conditions now. And the question is, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't overeat, I run, I didn't run, but, some of y'all run. And you say, how do I get cancer? Because we have had such traumatic childhoods. And it's not that we had bad parents, it's just a fact that we live in America at a time, and we still live in America at a time when people are not loving Black folks. So, driving to the grocery store could be a traumatic experience. Walking down Avon Avenue to get my aunt was a traumatic experience when I see a police officer shoot a man in the back with a 6-pack of beer and continue to shoot a child. That never leaves me. That is something that is a part of me. It's a part of my DNA. It's probably one of the reasons I have breast cancer, but it is something that makes me always dig deeper and always wish to provide safe environments for other people. That's something that you don't take off. And you can get therapy, and I'm sure I'm whole and I'm well, and I've done all of those things, but it never comes out of the DNA. It is a part of who I am. So all of those things kind of shaped me. And I'm not sure where I was when Linda jumped in. And when Linda said online, I said, let's deal with nomenclature, people that we met online. No, we met in a real line. And we have been friends ever since. And that was a long time ago. And I'm grateful for her friendship. Linda says she's a pagan. She's probably one of the most godly people I know. Don't tell her I said that.
I'll get you later.
We are indeed good friends. But, you know, getting back to the where I was, cancer. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2018. I did not have a symptom. There was nothing wrong with me. So I thought routine exam, I was getting a physical for clergy work that I do. I found out I had cancer. And that shaped my spiritual journey in the sense, not that it drove me closer to God, but it put me more in touch with what I'll call Africana spirituality. I was in South Carolina when I got because I told them to call me because I was going to continue to work. I was in South Carolina, I was training, and the clergy that I was training, we were in a conference center, literally created a healing circle around me and prayed in such a way that I had never experienced it. And literally, I knew that I was wrapped up in the love of God, but not only that, but wrapped up in such a deep sense of Africana love that connected me, you know, through time and in time. And that was an experience that really changed the trajectory of my studies. And as I went through that process and learned of integrative medicine, I was really blessed to be in a place where they did integrative medicine as I traveled through cancer. And the question for me is, why do we not have access to this level of medicine, but access to integrative medicine that respects the culture and the traditions of Africana people?
Mm-hmm.
And we have all kinds of cultures and traditions. So if I go into a hospital and I start talking in tongues, you know, someone might diagnose me as being insane, right? But if that is my cultural context, then I have that right to do that. So my trajectory kind of changed. I'm doing the doctorate now in health humanities, working with integrative medicine and understanding more about the power of prayer, the power of drumming, the power of dancing, the power of movement, the power of women loving on other women, right? So I had cancer, strange women from South Carolina, didn't know them, hugged me and rocked me until I was in this place of wholeness. So that's kind of what shapes my journey. I'm just going to stop now to see if you have any questions, and then I'm just going to talk more about the Bible. Okay.
Anybody have anything that you want to ask? I saw Ruthie had a question about is the similarity between, she said she grew up in the Ame Church. Is there any connection to the United Methodists?
Yes. So the Ame and the United Methodists, it's the same doctrine and polity. And what happened is in Philadelphia, and I don't remember the exact year, so forgive me, in Philadelphia, Blacks and whites worship together. In fact, I should remember because I just had my confirmation class there. And Richard Allen and Absalom Jones were members of the St. George Methodist Episcopal Church. And they had just gone through the epidemic. They had done all of this work with burying people and doing a lot of work to make sure Philadelphia was safe. They went into the church and they wanted to pray at the altar, and they were told that they could not pray at the altar. At that point, they left the church. Richard Allen started the AME Church. Again, polity and doctrine is the same, but basically started a church so it could be a place for African people to worship without the racism and the prejudice. I don't know why certain people stayed or didn't stay, but at the same time, you know, there's always an action and a reaction. Within the Methodist Episcopal Church, they started creating churches for Black people. So Black people had their own churches. I guess part of it was to prevent everyone Black from leaving. Similarly, in New York, what was going on was the start of the Ame Zion Church. And my family ancestry is Ame Zion. So again, this response to the way people were being treated in the Methodist Episcopal Church, Ame Zion was created. In the South, in response, you had, which was the CME Church, Colored Methodist Episcopal at the time. Now it's Christian Methodist Episcopal. Again, so these separate bodies were created. In the South, because the South was what the South is, white Methodists actually gave money to the CME Church to keep them away from the white church. So they didn't want to be bothered at all with them. And so it's very interesting how these churches developed. The AME Church is the largest Black Methodist denomination. When the United Methodist Church formed in 1968, it invited AME Zion, CME, and a whole host of other Methodist churches back in. People were pretty well formed where they were, and they did not come back. I mean, some probably did, but the majority did not. We have what's called an open fellowship, so we exchange one with the other. And I spend a lot of time with AME doing my consulting and my work. I'm a Black Methodist. Wherever I am, I'm a Black Methodist. So I hope that answers your question.
I think I've seen CME before, but I had never heard color. So that's interesting. So the church that you have and that you're a pastor in Willingboro, is that mixed race, or is it all Black, or what's happening?
I pastor an all Black church now. It is actually an Africana church. So we have people from African Americans, Nigeria, Liberia. I'm missing 2 countries, Nigeria, Liberia. Oh, that's not good. Oh, my members are I'm not doing good. And the Caribbean. But we have a number of African countries. So it's a really good experience.
Okay.
I think Jocelyn has a question. Her hand's raised.
I see. Go ahead, Jocelyn. What's your question?
I really don't have a question. Just wanted to make a quick comment. I want to thank Reverend Vanessa for sharing her story, but I just think about the traumatic experiences we've had in this nation as a people. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't stopped. It started from the day we set foot on the soil, and it continues to this very day. So when she talked about her breast cancer, stress is definitely a cause of disease. And the pharmaceutical companies are not interested in finding a cure for any disease because it's too lucrative. And that's all I wanted to say.
That is so true.
I would just say, just to add to Jocelyn, yeah, in terms of what Vanessa said, the difference for many of us is some of us have certain resources that other people don't, which makes certain populations of us even more prone to certain diseases and, health maladies, because we don't have convenience of healthcare from our jobs or whatever, or because you're at a certain age. So I think that that's something to be considered too. But go ahead, Vanessa, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we have Dr. Reverend Alethea.
Oh, yeah.
Smith-Withers. So did you have a question?
I want to just affirm so much, Reverend Vanessa, what you're sharing. I am a breast cancer overcomer also, and it's amazing that it's so important for women in ministry to tell our personal stories that help anchor us as those who have not only overcome, but are here for a purpose to share a powerful message. And so I want to say that everything you said was resonating with my heart and with my head. So praise God for that. But Jarena Lee is who I call my personal saint. I thought that would resonate with you. So you may want to share with them a little bit about Jarena Lee. But to see her story, I remember when I was in seminary at Howard University School of Divinity. It is a theological institution, certainly a place of scholarship. But when I read her story, first time I had ever heard of her, it was such a powerful message to me about the place of women in ministry, that you go through, you will tunnel through all the adversarial responses to you. And I remember my first week in seminary, the men looked at me and said, "Why are you here?
Mhm.
You know, why are you here?" And I remember saying, "I'm called. I don't know. I will discover why I'm here." And they were very concerned because within 2 months of being in seminary, I to a church. I was the only seminarian, a minister. Thank you for sharing, for us to share our stories. We encourage one another, but not just women in ministry, we encourage women to stand in their power. To stand in their power. A lot of women don't, or men don't understand the difference between power and control. We're not control freaks. We're those who claim the power that has been given to us, and we try to live it out. I didn't say we live it out, but we try. And in many cases, we do live it out as you're living it out. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate your words. And, you know, it's interesting, you took the importance of telling a story. Years ago in prayer, you know, God would just say, tell your story, tell your story. If you look at my handles for certain things, is VMWTYS, tell your story. And I kept saying, I don't have a story to tell. You know what I'm saying? I don't have a story to tell. And that's why it's very important that we hold on to these spiritual messages that God gives us and hold on to the calling. Like you said, you didn't know why you were there at that moment, right? But you had to hold on to it and stand in your authority, right? To stand in that authority, right? Because you had the power, but God gave you the authority to be in that place, to know how to walk it out. And I think as women, because we don't tell our story, we only show the glossy side, you know, the side with the makeup and all of this and the finished product, that a lot of women don't understand that you have to really stand. And you got to stand through some really ugly stuff, but you got to know, yeah, it's some ugly stuff. You know what, when you grow and you bloom, right? You grow and you bloom and you're beautiful, it's because you've been doused with fertilizer.
Yes.
You know? And it's the same thing as plants, right? A lot of fertilizer, a lot of manure, but to get a good garden. So I think we need to tell the story about when we're being doused with manure. You know,
and remember who's standing in the line with you. So thank you so much you never know what line you're in. You better pay attention to who's behind you, in front of you, and next to you, because that's who God gives you, places you with people who can support you for a lifetime.
A lifetime. Amen. Amen. So thank you so much. Thank you. And God bless all of you.
Bison, I'll be in touch with you about some power stuff if you don't mind. Okay, she said, okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
So are there any other questions or comments on that phase? Okay, so I'm just going to walk through and talk about the Bible study and the way I do it and the way I approach it. There was something else that I wanted to pick up and I missed it. It'll come back. So let me go back to the screen share. So, you know, and I'm not going to go through the definition of womanism because I'm sure all of you know it. It is in the PowerPoint presentation, and I can make that available later, but just really quickly, term coined by Alice Walker in 1980, but the definition was popularized in 1983 in The Color Purple. And I have some quotes here from Nyasha Jr., who is a Black theologian and scholar, and she talks about a womanist view of study in her writings. I don't want to read to you at this point unless you have a question about womanism, but I want to jump to and start really walking through the Bible. So for me, just being a womanist is I'm not a feminist. I am a womanist. I look from the perspective of a Black woman, which is not the perspective of a white woman. My experiences are that of a Black woman. And, you know, God bless everybody. You know, people are okay in their respective spaces, but my respective space is that of a Black woman who is a descendant of African people who were brought to this country forcibly, who have endured terrible things and continue to endure terrible things, but through it all, we have managed to survive. And so that's how I view the world, and I'm happy to view it that way. I want to talk about the Bible, and, seminary was great for me. Theological school wasn't seminary. Theological school was great for me because it gave me time to read. And I spent a lot of time reading the Bible, but I also spent a lot of time in the Methodist archives. So it holds the Methodist archives for all things Methodism. So if you want to learn about anything Methodist, go to Drew. And so I spent a lot of time with the Hebrew Bible. I spent a lot of time looking at how the Bible was developed and formed. And I want to read these two quotes to you. I will read this because it's about translation and the words that we use. So translation is not a matter of words only. It's a matter of making intelligible a whole culture. So we translate documents and we translate word for word. But if we don't understand the culture and context, the translation is really no good. And that's what happens often when we read the Bible. The Bible, in some cases, has been translated accurately, word for word, but we have no context, we have no culture, so therefore we have not a whole understanding. And then there are 3 grades of translation evils. 1 is just errors. 2, it's a slip. And 3, it's a willful reshaping. And so when we talk about this willful reshaping, that's what we see when we look at the Jefferson Bible or when we look at the slave catechism. So the willful reshaping is what Jefferson, and some of you may have seen it on display. Jefferson literally cut out of the Bible the portions of the Bible he thought that were applicable to him, and he created his own Bible. Similarly, there were slave catechisms. Slave catechisms cut out the verses of the Bible that applied to slavery and saying that slaves should be good slaves. And which was interesting. And that was the only part of the Bible that was taught. So there was nothing taught about liberation. There was nothing taught about justice. There was nothing taught about, any of the verses that would say liberation, be free. God is a God of justice. It was only about the portions that would keep people oppressed. And that's how often the Bible has been taught. In many cases, the Bible teaching has been an oral tradition, so we only get what has been passed down orally, and that becomes problematic. So when I got to Theo school, I learned that the Hebrew Bible, first of all, it's not our Old Testament. And I know we accept, as Christians, we accept the Bible by faith. So I'm not saying anything against anyone's belief system. I'm talking now scholarship, not what we accept by faith, but what the scholarship is saying. So when I got there, I said, wow, learned about the Hebrew Bible and realized that the Hebrew Bible in its original writing, there is no punctuation, there's no breaks, there are no vowels. So it's, as you see on the screen, many Hebrew letters strung together. And there were Masoretes, a group of scholars that then interpreted the Hebrew Bible. And if you know anything about the modern Jewish people, they learn Hebrew growing up because that is the language that their Bible is written in. So they teach it to their children so that their children can read the Bible in the original language. In the Christian Testament, which is supersuccessionist, where we said that Christianity is superior to the Hebrew Bible, therefore we could make that just the Old Testament and we live under the New Testament. But the reality is, if you don't understand the foundational document, you can't understand what's built on it. And so that for me was intriguing. And I said I wanted to learn Hebrew, which is a whole nother story. So women in the Bible, and I'm going to shift and I'm going to talk a little bit about women in the Bible. And I'm just going to name a couple. I'm not going to do many so that we could break and have conversation. So why would we even study women in the Bible? What's the importance of it? The other question is, how many women are mentioned in the Bible? And I'm just going to stop for a moment. How many women do you think are mentioned in the Bible? Anybody?
2. I said 2.
2. Okay. How many women are mentioned in the Bible?
I'm gonna say more than 10.
Michelle, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Over 900.
Yeah,
Oh, wow. Somebody said 100.
100.
Yeah.
Michelle,
I
I see a
think there are
hand.
many women in the Bible. The problem is we don't know the language to know what the gender of the names that are used. But the reality is it is a patriarchal book and a patriarchal system. So it's difficult to really say how many, but I think there's more than we think and less than there should be.
All right. I like that. Wow.
So we have a hand raise. We have 2. Michelle, you were first. Go ahead. Michelle Armster.
Yes, I just spoke. I was the one that just spoke.
I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry. That's okay. I'll lower my hand. Sorry.
Okay. And Stacy, you wanted to speak on this?
Yes, as far as named, between 20 and 30.
Okay. All right.
Ruthie hasn't guessed. Ruthie, what did you want to say?
I was just going to say that there are probably many women mentioned in the Bible, but are there books devoted to women in the Bible? I think that's like the difference.
Okay.
So there are probably stories where women are interwoven, but are there actually books? And someone put up like, my namesake, Ruth, Sarah, Naomi. Yeah.
Okay.
Dr. Smith Withers, you have a.
I know I can't give the exact number. Yeah. Over 130 women, if I can remember, somewhere in that range are mentioned. Some named and some unnamed.
Okay. Betty Broadway.
I'm cheating.
That's okay.
Pastor. They're over 900.
Uh-oh, somebody's cheating. She admits it though.
Okay. So let's see what has been found thus far.
Yeah.
Named 250.
50. Yeah.
250, and this is based on current scholarship. And I think it was Michelle who said that there are women in the Bible where their names have been changed.
Mm-hmm.
The names have been changed. It would have been a female name, but when the translators came, they changed it to a male name. So that's why scholarship is so important, to really go back and to look outside of the text. If it's something where there is additional text, because the names are changed. It's the same thing that happened with the Africana presence in the Bible. We see Cush in the Bible, we know that it's referring to an African nation or an African country or an African grouping. However, there's so many cases in the Bible where when the translators came in, because of their own bias and their own racism and their own hatred, they said this can't be African people, and they just literally took the name of the country out of the Bible. So we're going back now, scholars are going back to actually correct that and find that information. And there's still not a lot of scholarship around Africans in the Bible or the African presence in the Bible, as much scholarship as with the whole Bible. Similarly with women, it's the same thing. So currently, we know that there's 600 unnamed women in the Bible. So that's a lot of women. So that's 750 women.
So there's a question from Leslie Harrison, who I must fully
and there are probably more. And the way it's found out is through current.
Go ahead. I'm on delay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Is there a question?
No, can you hear me? That was me, Helen. I think I'm having a connection issue, which is crazy. No, I was just saying that Leslie Harrison is in the chat. She's a fellow pastor as well. And she's saying what happens when we add the sacred texts, which are not included in the Bible.
Okay, and so then we're going to find even more, right? So when we go to the apocryphal and we go to the other text that's not in the canon, then we'll probably find even more. So now we're just talking about these women in the 66 books that we call the Bible, that the texts that have been canonized. The 66 books, we know there are more once we go to the other texts. So this is a lot, and these are stories that we weren't taught, or clearly weren't taught these stories. But if we were taught about some of these women, we were just taught such a tiny little bit, and we were taught in a patriarchal colonial system that wanted to oppress women. So we really weren't taught or I will say I wasn't taught. I don't know what anybody else was taught. I wasn't taught. And by and large, the women that I know and teach weren't taught a liberative model from the Bible. So how do we approach the Bible? Full approach, not to criticize the text, not to say that there's anything wrong with the text, but critical being a critical thinker. So mostly, and when we look at the Bible, it's been historical criticism. When people say the Bible is a historical document and they try to match it up on a timeline to a historical event. And so that's why you get into the debates about, was it really 7 days? Was it a big bang? What was the creation? Because they're trying to make it a historical document. And historical criticism is not necessarily accurate because the Bible is not a historical document in the way that you would pick up a history book. The other thing that we have to remember, we accept the Bible by faith. We accept it as the book for Christians, right? The Christian Bible. However, the Hebrew Bible is the story of one people. It is the narrative of the Hebrew people. And so we're talking about something that's thousands of years old that we're now trying to prove as authentic history. So historical criticism is not necessarily going to work. The method or tool that I use when I look at the Bible is something called narrative criticism, where we actually look at the story, look at what's going on, and ask some critical questions. And to ask questions, God is so big that you could ask God a question. And many people say they were taught not to question God. Well, question God. God is big enough for you to question. And if you don't ask questions, how will you get an answer? So we want to go into the narrative, go into the book and ask questions. So when we use the method that I use for biblical studies, which is biblical narrative, we're going to look at the characters, the setting, the narrations, the dialogue. Why was this story written? And why did this story survive?
Reverend Vanessa, I have a
Yes.
question. I was always raised to never question God. So where did this all come about? It's
Probably,
like,
and I don't know who's talking, but I would imagine because of
it's Annette,
patriarchy.
Annette Warner.
Hi, Annette. Because of patriarchy and because of sexism, patriarchy, sexism, and oppression. If I question you, then that means I may be challenging your authority. And if I'm using the Bible or any document as a tool of oppression, I don't want you to question it. I don't want to engage in conversation with you. I want you to accept the words that I'm saying as the gospel truth.
Okay.
And that was passed from generation to generation. My parents are probably a little radical. My family's a little radical because they said question everything. But it is tradition. The same thing as children should be silent, right? Children should be seen and not heard. Women should be seen and not heard.
I have
Shouldn't speak in the church. Yes, go on.
I have a statement. In my personal relationship, out of reverential fear, I don't necessarily question God, but I do ask him questions.
Okay. So distinguish that. I hear you. Distinguish that for the listeners.
Well, I think because of who he is and whom we are to him as his children, yes, we can question, but because of the reverential fear, I just resolved to just asking questions. They're similar, but as my tone may be different and the way I ask may be different.
Mm-hmm. And that's,
but I do ask many, many questions.
And that's great. And so when I say question God, ask questions, I'm not saying disrespect God, but all humans have a full range of human emotion. And if we believe the Bible, we're made in the image of God, in the Imago Dei. So the emotions that we experience, God understands, because in some way, much bigger probably than us, God has a full range of emotions. And we know God has a full range of emotions from reading the Hebrew Bible. God gets angry. God opens up the earth. God drops people in the earth. God says, okay, I won't do this again. I won't destroy the earth. So God has a full range of emotions. So I think the understanding God, when we ask questions, God is not punitive of us asking questions. I don't think we should be, just be disrespectful. I don't think we should disrespect one another. But I think it's very good. So thank you for that, to ask questions. God gave us wonderful brains, wonderful minds, wonderful gifts. And I think that we should use them. Yes, the psalmist argued with God. Absolutely. And Linda, I don't know, why is God male? Is God male? Linda put in the chat, is God male?
Well, I asked that question once too. I asked, why do we refer to you in the male gender? And that is because men are progenitors. They're progenitors. They're the producer. We're the incubator. And as a progenitor, that's more of a male role than a female role.
Okay. There is an African proverb where a young boy is walking with his grandfather, and he's, wait a minute, let me just stop this. A young boy is walking with his grandfather, and he says, "Grandfather, when we read books, the lion never wins." And the grandfather said, "Because the lion doesn't write the books." So I think whoever writes the story from their perspective. So it all depends on who's writing the story. So when you have, we talked about the Masoretic text, right? So we had all of those letters. That was a lot of letters jumbled up. Someone came in, these Masoretes, and they then said, this is what this means. And they put in vowels and they broke it up. Then much of the text that we have, the initial translations were done by Germans. Then they came in and they then interpreted the text. And then many of us still read the King James Version. Then that was another reinterpretation of the text. And now there's so many biblical interpretations. So whoever's interpreting, right? So that whether they intentional, whether it's a slip, but in my experience, God may be a Black woman. I feel the love of a mother God often. I had a good dad, I had a good mother. God is neither male nor female. We that worship God in spirit and in truth. God is not gendered. But that's what people do. And then we need to make a decision. In the PowerPoint, one of the other turning points in my life that I did not write about, I didn't put there, is in the 70s when Ntake Shange did For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough. And I saw it about 5 times. I saw it off Broadway, then off Broadway, then on Broadway a number of times. And I bought the album, and it was amazing. And what was amazing in that is she said, I found God in myself and I loved her fiercely. If you are made in the image of God and the Spirit of God lives within you, then God must have at least some female attributes, right? And there's a whole workshop that I do on there. So God is God the mother, right? God is God the father. You know, old spiritual said that, you know, and I'm not going to preach, but, you know, God is what you need. The Bible says God's name is I am that I am. And that I am doesn't mean I am for this moment. It means I am that I was, I am that I am in this moment, and I am what I will be. It's not a gendered name. There's no gender for God, but we make God whoever we need God to be at that moment. As a human being.
Grace. What about God's grace?
What
about his grace?
God's grace is sufficient for everyone. So help me with the question.
Race.
Race.
Yes.
God is a spirit. And there's no race in the spirit. Now I have certain beliefs, and I'm talking from scholarship, so I'm not going to tell you what I believe. I'm not going to go down that road. But we know that Africa is the creation of civilization. So if we do enough study, if we could get access to those spaces, then we know religion or this understanding or worship of God would have to originate in Africa, because that's where people originated.
That kind of flies in the face of the white Jesus with blonde hair and blue eyes.
Well, you know, that was somebody's cousin. That was somebody's cousin, you know. Okay, that was somebody's cousin. It could have been my cousin if I was doing a painting, but anyway.
I have a comment, Vanessa. I'm just going to throw this out here. What my question is, as far as we know, human beings only use 10% of their brain, which means there's 90% that we're not using. And I come from the vantage point that if we used 100, if we had the capacity to use 100% of our brain, what we imagine God to be is actually our capabilities, and that God, this concept of higher power, is so vast that we don't have the capability of really understanding that vastness. So we kind of limit our thinking within that 10%. So you want to just speak to that? Because we just haven't had that question. We haven't had time to have that conversation. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Well, I mean, we can only understand to our capacity. So yes, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you. You know, if we just think for a moment, for those of us who believe in God and believe in God, that God created a universe. So an entity or power or being that is so complex that it could literally create a world, and all the organisms and all the microorganisms and all the earthworms and all of the things that are going on that we don't even know are going on. Just to think about even our body, everything that's going on in our body. So any power that can create that is clearly beyond what we have the ability to think about. It's very complex. You know, one of my professors at school said that God is big. God is just a big, big, big God. And it is a very complex proposition. So we have to make things in a way that's understandable for us. But as we mature, right, as we mature as people, as critical thinkers, then our ability to even say that God is bigger than race, God is bigger than gender, God is big, you know, because at this stage, I would think many of us should really kind of understand that God is, wow, you know, not God the Father. And then some people had horrible fathers. Why would you even want God to be a father, right? So the image, what image do you want? And the image for me is if God loves me, and that's what we say, God loves us. If God loves me, then I need to be comfortable around God.
Mhm.
And I may not be comfortable around God the Father. So one of the things that we do in our tradition now is we are moving away from the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And we say Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer, non-gendered. Yeah, so we can't narrow, well, we can because we do it all the time. We need to be careful about how we judge other people's belief systems and where they are. Because it's all a faith walk, it's a journey, and we just learn more and more. It's Jacob's ladder, right? Every round goes higher and higher, and we should be progressing towards a higher place.
Thank you, Vanessa, for that response to my comment.
You're quite welcome, Linda. I think,
Simone?
is there one more question before we go back to the PowerPoint?
Yes, Simone Seymour?
Yes, good afternoon, ladies. Question, and Ms. Carter had brought it up in regards to the use of only 10% of our brains and understanding the capacity of truly what God is. From things that I have researched and learned and experienced over time, can you speak to the fact in regards that as mankind has become more selfish, self-centered, and wicked, that maybe because of that, we've connected ourselves from the ability to truly understand just how awesome the creator and creators are? So if you look at the fact that today we still can't figure out how the pyramid was built, but man did it somehow. So it's like, as man has extended their self-centered and selfishness and wickedness into the earth and the atmosphere, we're no longer able to understand the vastness and the greatness of what God has and can do, because we focus so much on ourselves, which is why we have these issues now with being Baptist and Methodist and Episcopal and Catholic and Jewish and all the other things that separate us from truly understanding that as mankind, we are truly in the image of God, but we don't treat each other that way.
And so as humankind, right? As humankind, so even as we think about humans and who we are and how we experience knowledge and information. So one of the things in my studies, my scholarship, when I look at Africana spirituality, I look at epistemologies, ways of knowing. How do we know? How do we know? Do we really spend enough time? So let me back up. So in my family, we dream dreams, right? Like people say, oh, you're old, spooky, your country. Yeah, we dream dreams. We tell people what we dreamed and we act on the dream. We see visions. We talk about these things. It's very much our culture, but that comes from spending time alone. You can't always watch TV or stream or whatever we're doing, Facebook and Instagramming, and hear God too. You can't even interpret your dreams. So I think when you go back to an ancient time when people were building pyramids and people were doing so many things, it's a possibility that they were spending more time really connected with the Creator, connected in a way that they could hear and that they could listen and that they could imagine. And now we're not connected in that way. And a lot of it is because we spend so much time internally with ourselves and our community. And when I say community, not community development, but our little circle of friends and our little circle of what we need and our little circle of me, I, me, versus spending time really addressing that spirituality and being in connection, having another way of knowing information. People were able to communicate across the miles before the internet or before telephone. We had the ability to dream. We had the ability to do many things and to communicate, to see visions. Harriet Tubman would fall out And God would show her a map on where to go. She didn't have the internet. She didn't have Instagram, but she knew how to go.
Vanessa, but that's how pagans, when I talk about pagans, that's what I'm talking about. People connected, you know, they're connected and they have time to really pay attention to their connection to the universe, to the earth, to what's going on. I'm not talking about the pagans like in Europe who were bringing bread and butter to fir trees because that was the only green thing during the winters in Europe. I'm talking about that's the way pagans live for thousands of years when they identify where the planets are and the connection between, you know, the planets and the earth and the sun. And this is thousands of years ago before there was the telescope. So, you know, when I talk about paganism, I'm not talking about the Eurocentric that a lot of people think of from the perspective of Europeans. I'm thinking about those individuals and those societies and those cultures that existed for thousands of years and what they were doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I'm not a New Testament scholar, so I'm not going to go there. But just, you know, the three kings who visited the Christ child, they came by dreams and they came following stars. Even to make it more contemporary, we know scientifically that children grow better if their feet can touch the earth. If a child can walk on dirt, the child grows better and the child is healthier versus a child that walks on concrete. So the science supports that. Let me just jump back though for a moment so I could talk to you about a couple women because I see the time, and then we can, we could just start to wrap up. And just in terms of the methodology of studying is when you look at a scripture, what does it mean for us today? What it meant for them then and what it means for us now are two different things. What does it mean? Is it liberative? Is it oppressive? If yes, how? If no, what did you take away from it? You should always ask yourself, and you know, and you ask questions, just ask a question. So women professions and role in the Bible, and now I'm talking about the Hebrew Bible. For the most part, there were four major professions for women, and that was midwife, wise woman, musician, and mourners. So in that culture, there were professional mourners. The midwife position was very much similar to that of priest and prophet, in that it was a community of women who were trained and they did apprenticeships, and they did more than just deliver the babies, but they also helped women with their health after coming towards the delivery and after delivery. And additionally, they were gifted in how to pray for the birth. And there were wise women, and wise women were literate women who would negotiate various terms between government officials, and that was actually a profession. Musicians, many of the Psalms that we read and some of the Lamentations were written by women. They're finding out now more and more were written by women. Even Proverbs, they're finding more of the Proverbs were written by women. And remember, the Psalms were songs, and then the mourners. And then there were another group of women who were royal women, who were born into royalty. They were literate women as well. And sometimes we think of women, we don't think of these women in the Bible as literate, as
Sorry, Vanessa, I did that. Can you unmute yourself?
okay, got it.
Sorry, that was me.
All right. So the royal women and then prophets. We know about most of the male prophets. When we talk about prophets, we think about Deborah. But actually of the prophets, you have Miriam, you have Deborah, you have Huldah, you have Anna, and you have the four youngest daughters of Philip in the New Testament. The Bible also mentions false prophets, which are women as well, but still prophets nonetheless. I want you to just walk with me for a moment and rethink the Bible. We hear about the patience of Job, and that's not necessarily accurate. Job was not patient. Job argued with God. Job argued with his friends, And I've done some work around this. The book of Job is actually a legal metaphor. And so that's a very fascinating book to go through, not patience. But if you want people to stay in a certain place, right? So you don't want them to ask questions. You want them to be satisfied with their lot in life. You just tell them to wait for God and have the patience of Job. Again, we're waiting with women. You say, wait for your Boaz, wait for Boaz to come like a white knight, probably white knight, or a knight in shining armor. Boaz will come and rescue you. That's not what the book of Ruth is about. Ruth did not wait for Boaz, and that it's a wonderful love story. It's really not a love story at all. It's a story of property and real estate. And Naomi knew how to manipulate a system so that she could get her land back, and she would have land to live on for her and her daughter-in-law. So it's, and I do like an 8-week study on Ruth and the real estate principles underneath Ruth. It has nothing to do with all of this gooey love and waiting for men. And then we've also heard, he that findeth the wife findeth a good thing. And women are taught that we should wait to be found, because of course Boaz is going to come and rescue us and we'll be found. The concept is actually ridiculous for me. And this is only for me. For me, I'm not telling you to think this, that I should go to school, get a law degree, and I'll just stop right there. Not even my 2 degrees, not even the 2-for-1 that I got, and that I should wait to be found when I am a thinking, critical thinker, person who can invest and have assets. It's just not, it doesn't make sense to me as a critical thinker. So I'm not the only one, because in the Bible, there were women called the daughters of Zelophehad, and he had 5 daughters. And this is in Numbers 27, and they had inherited a substantial amount of wealth. And they went to Moses and they said, Moses, look, we have our own resources. We have our own wealth. We want to pick our own husband. And Moses said, what? And he went to God. And God said, these women are right. They have their own resources. They have their own real estate. Allow them to inherit and take their father's land and find the husband that they want. We're not taught that. We're not taught that. So I think, as we start to rethink the Bible, shift the lens, look at it differently, then we will see something differently. We will get a different outcome, and we will be more comfortable with the text because we could find ourselves in the text. Want to talk quickly about 2 women, Hagar, which most of you, I'm sure, if you are a churchgoer or even Islam, any religious tradition, because Hagar is in every religious tradition, will know who Hagar is. And Hagar was actually Sarah's question. Okay. Hagar was actually Sarah's servant. She was not Abraham's servant. She was Sarah's servant. She was Egyptian. Sarah felt impatient and that she wouldn't have a baby. So she gave Hagar to Abraham. Now Hagar was a much younger woman. She gave him to Abraham so that she could get pregnant. And under the tradition, that baby would then belong to Sarah. Once Hagar got pregnant, she said, oh no, I'm the one now. I'm not property. I have human value because I'm carrying this very precious child. Her name is uncertain, and perhaps it means a wanderer, or in Ethiopic, it originally meant splendid. But Hagar, as an Egyptian woman, is the first person in the Bible to name God, and the only woman to name God. And she named God El Rohi, meaning the one who sees me, because God saw her when she ran away the first time. Then God told her to return. And then the next time she leaves, Sarah just throws her out, and they throw her out without any water, any supplies or anything. Again, God shows up. She has a son, now she's with her son Ishmael, and Ishmael and Hagar also inherited the promise that God had given to Abraham. So Hagar is mentioned in every tradition because she is the mother of Ishmael, and Ishmael then has 12 sons, the same way that Isaac has 12 sons. They teach us about, or I was taught about Sarah, didn't learn about Hagar and the complexity until much later. Another woman that I want to just mention is Huldah, and she was a prophetess. And again, her name, the meaning of her name is uncertain. But the image that I'm using is an image that I use in a lot of my Bible studies, and it's from James C. Lewis. And James C. Lewis did a series of biblical prints called Icons of the Bible, using all, and this is photography, using all Black models. And it's just really phenomenal for me as a Bible teacher, and to see another image, because we need to see another image. The truth is, no one knows how any of these people actually look. This was thousands of years ago, so if the image is what you want to see, then I encourage people to use images that reflect them. She was a temple prophet, and she actually was a part of the temple during the repairs ordered by King Josiah. And he was, quote unquote, the last of Judah's good kings. Her prophecy and the way she worked with King Josiah was tied to nationalistic, political, and economic policies. So she was right there with Josiah, prophesying, and somebody just came into the church, excuse me, and the prophecies that she did affected the entire nation. And we never talk about Huldah. I didn't learn her name until maybe 10 years ago, if that long. So she, again, a prophet in the palace, a prophet prophesying to the king and to people who were surrounding the king. I'm gonna just go on. I want to talk about the wise women. Earlier, I mentioned wise women, that wise women was actually a position. That was a way that women made an income. It was a profession. And so we talk about these unnamed women in the Bible. So there was the wise women of Tekoa, and that was a small village, and her wisdom, or the gift that she had, was wisdom in the biblical tradition. So wisdom in the biblical tradition was a skill in rhetoric. So she could talk and she could persuade. She was gifted, so if we think about law, she could have been a gifted litigator, but she was an advisor to King David. And she worked right along with the prophet Samuel to really talk about what was going on and to put King David in check when he was inappropriate. There was also another wise woman, and that was the wise woman Beth Mccarth. And again, her role in her setting, she was similar to an elder in the community. And within her role, she negotiated for safety for her city with Joab. And Joab was one of David's generals. And David had given the order after a rebellion by his son Absalom to just kill all the people there. And she negotiated with this general. And in the negotiation, only one person was killed. She said, look, you kill that person, that's fine, we good, leave my people alone. But she was a gifted negotiator. She was a very skillful woman. And so this is a much different image of women that I was taught about growing up as a child and even as a young woman. So there are many, 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 many more women in the Bible who were in leadership roles, who were in critical roles, and who made political decisions. So I just want to end it there because we spent a lot of time together and it is August. So I appreciate you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to entertain them.
Good information. You know, when you were talking about not being able to know what people look like from so many thousands of years ago, can you guys hear me clearly? Because I think I have a bad connection. Can you hear me?
It's crackling a little bit, but we can hear.
A little bit. Oh my God.
Yeah, it sounds like you're in a vacuum. Sounds like you're in a hallway. That's it. Yep.
Oh, shoot. Okay, I'll come back. Go ahead. Without any questions, I'll try and put in my headset.
What you know?
This is Michelle Armster, and I just want to say thank you so much for lifting up those women. Huldah is one that I just am fascinated by her. I like to do more, as well as the women of Tekoa. And I think what is, for me, the Hebrew Bible is rich when we recognize that it is a story by a people for a people, that we, and we too have our stories, right? I mean, we too have our, and I'm using this, we have our quote unquote Old Testament. And I think part of the transformation or the spiritual work that we need to do is to find our stories. We need to tell the lion story. The lion story is our story, right? So I just really, Reverend Dr. JD, Vanessa, I'm just absolutely thoroughly moved and enriched by your presentation today. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Okay, is this better? Can you all hear me better now?
Yes.
That's good. Yes, Vanessa. Yes, Helen.
Okay, I don't know what's going on. I pay a lot of money for my internet, but lately it's been kind of crazy. So I guess I need to get them out here. What I was saying, Reverend Vanessa, when you were speaking about not knowing what people looked like back, thousands of years ago, it took me back to my first trip to Africa, which was to Egypt. And I remember going into the catacombs as well as into the pyramids, and then all the stuff that they stole from the pyramids and put in the museums. But our ancestors left us so many signs of who were the original people in Egypt. When you're in the catacombs, all of the hieroglyphics are in brown and black paint from thousands of years ago. So if you can tell me why brown people would have how non-brown people would have told their story with brown people, just doesn't make sense, right? And then I remember going into the museum, and I'm telling you, every hairstyle that we wear, from an afro to dreadlocks to cornrow, there was a wig in there for every style that Black people still wear today. Dreadlocks, the whole bit. So there's some evidence about who people were thousands of years ago. So I don't know if that relates to the comment that you made, but it just brought a thought to my mind.
And yes, I completely concur. I mean, just from the archaeological record, we would know that there were brown people just from where people were located prior to certain invasions. So we think about the Arab invasion of Egypt. Prior to that, everybody was brown, right? And so people came in and they changed the language and they changed the look. And so for people who see modern Egyptians, if they don't know the history, they think that's how people look. That's not how people look. So I was talking about just the detail. Like, we don't know the detail, but we do know that the people were brown, brown to Black, just from the archaeological record.
And they had Black people hair.
Yes, they did. Amen. So we know that. And I think that that's something that we should really share and tell our children. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. And when you really look at the the history of Egypt, so we learn about, tell Pharaoh, let my people go. And so from that point of view, and we have adopted that story to talk about African liberation. But the reality is that so much of the culture from the Hebrew people that they adopted, took, borrowed, from Egypt, and that Egypt, when they were in captivity with the Babylonians, was actually one of their greatest allies to protect them. So it's not that, the old Egypt was all bad all the time. It was actually a very strong ally. Even the legal systems used by the Hebrews, and if you read the book of Job as a legal metaphor, you would see that the legal system was actually from the Egyptian legal system.
Wow.
So the influence of Africana people and the look of Africana people is deeply embedded in the text. And I don't know, someone earlier said, we don't know what words to look for. And that's why I went back to school to learn Hebrew. Not that I'm really, really good at it, but I'm good enough to know something ain't right. and I will just share one thing before I stop, because I didn't stay on the language for a long time. But one of the things that really impacted me when I started to learn the language, or even before I learned the language that really motivated me, is we talk about Job's wife. And we give her a hard time. She was a foolish woman. She said, curse God and die, right? But the word that's used there is barak. And that word means to bless or to curse. The same word means bless or curse. How would the text change if we think of her as a woman who now says, bless God and die? And if we do a traumatic analysis or an analysis from trauma criticism and say that this is a woman who had suffered tremendous loss, she had lost her children, she had lost her husband, or she was losing her husband, she had lost her wealth, she had lost her home, and she is seeing her husband now sit in ashes, scraping his skin off. Was that an act of sympathy for her to say, oh, just bless God and die? Because at the point that he died, she would die also, because that was her income. So what does that mean? Is this a foolish woman? Is this a grieving woman? Is this a wise woman? So we buy the hype real quick. Oh, that foolish woman. And preachers preach about it. But maybe she wasn't. And maybe if we knew the language, we could look at things differently.
Let me ask you, have you been to Egypt?
I have not.
Wow. Has anybody on this call been to Egypt? It's a trip that I strongly recommend for all Black people. You will walk around in absolute amazement. If you don't think you're magnificent or question what your capabilities are, all those questions will be answered for you in Egypt. It's quite fascinating. Someone earlier mentioned the pyramids. I could not believe when I went into the pyramid, I had no idea that you had to descend. So you actually are like going down into the pyramids. And when you get down there, it's you're flabbergasted. You're inside, there's not a musty feeling or smell, or it was just fascinating. I'm just telling you, if you walk around in absolute amazement, from the pyramids to just all the other statues, to the sundials, to just all of it. And as Reverend Vanessa said, you will see a lot of Arabs. But trust me, when you see the Nubian people, they are so happy. They're probably the most genuine welcome I've ever had in any African country, and I've been to 7. They were so happy to see you. And the reason they stayed Nubian is because they only intermarry. They do not marry outside the Nubian race, ethnicity. And so they don't intermix, they don't intermarry with the Arabs. The Arabs are the majority there, but the Nubians, let it be known that it's really our land, and our ancestors left us a lot of proof that it's our land. So it's perfect.
Helen, on that note, there's a lot of scholarship now about Egyptians coming to the Americas thousands of years before chattel slavery. And so if you look at the works that were done in South America and in Central America and some places in the United States, you could see a connection. So there's a lot of scholarship going on. The other thing, for those of you who know Chancellor Williams, who did the book, destruction of the Black civilization. He talks about when the Arabs come to the area and had a lot of the Nubians were driven south to South Africa, or that area of South Africa. So, you know, when we think about that, we think we need to keep in mind Egypt's civilization that we know of is 7,500 years old. South Africa's civilization prior to what we see is about 10,000, and indigenous people on this continent, they can establish 25,000 years ago. So, you know, when Vanessa's talking about interpretation, language, all these different things, we have to consider when we're determining, you know, where we're going to be at in terms of how we see these things.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. I see 2 hands up. Since we've heard from you already, Reverend, let's hear from Lola first, and then we'll come back to Reverend Alethea. Lola?
Hello.
Hi, Lola.
Hi, how are you, Helen?
I'm good.
Reverend Vanessa, hi, how are you?
Hi, Lola. How are you? Call me
I'm
Vanessa,
fine,
please.
thank you. And thank you for a wonderful presentation. I just loved it. I've been quiet all afternoon because I just wanted to take it all in. And what I was touched by the description of your family when you said that you're all dreamers and you believe in that. That we do the same in my family. And you know, I'm from Nigeria. Because I had my great aunt predicted just about everything that happened in the family, and she would see in a dream, and everybody would know. And we're just waiting for it to happen. Some people have the gift, and you can easily tell who has the gift in the family. Me, all my years in this country, my dad would always write to me and say, "Did you have any dreams?" Because as a child, I saw things too, and I still do. So, you know, thanks for affirming that. And the fact that you have a church with Africans and African Americans, where I know now, just from listening to you, I can see your perspective on things. That just makes me so happy, because you know, Africans, sometimes I say they took our brain and gave us the Bible with their interpretation, and we just go crazy with the white man's view of things. And I think you might have started something here, and I just hope it just spreads around, where my African brothers and sisters can start to see that the interpretation we were given is not necessarily the right way to look at the Bible. I mean, to me, God is a force. I've always felt that if he made me to his likeness, why wouldn't he be a Black woman? So, you know, that's just my take on that one. So, all right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miss Lola.
Thank you, Lola.
Reverend Dr. Alethea, go ahead.
Well, you got my name correctly pronounced several times, so I commend you and thank you for that. But I'll say the name is a Greek name. You've studied Hebrew, Reverend Vanessa, and I have studied Greek. And my given name is Alethea, and I was always called Rosalind by my middle name. And Alethea means truth. So I'm a seeker of truth. But I want to take a moment and just commend you for a wonderful presentation. You are gifted, and I thank God for your gifts, but you are a scholar.
Mm-hmm.
And I thank God for your scholarship and your work. What an encouragement that is for all of us. I am one of 2 women who founded a church in the District of Columbia, the bastion of male supremacy. That is the District of Columbia. One of 2 women who founded a church that has lasted more than 20 years.
Amen.
And I'm thankful for that. My church came out of the first Black Baptist church in the District of Columbia. I was the first woman in the pulpit. So to share the story of African peoples, one thing is powerful, but to share the power and scholarship and brilliance and giftedness of women, because the story is there's still a struggle in our community about women claiming their voice and their power and their authority. So we have to do it lovingly. I am a womanist and stand with that title with pride and commitment, because it's not just for me. It's not just for women, it is for our entire community, and certainly the men that are in our lives. And it is important that we articulate that and live that out in powerful and meaningful ways. So I thank you. Your words resonate with my heart and my mind. And it is important that we speak it and share it. So thank you, and again, thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
And
Oh, I
thank
put
God
one
for
thing
you.
in the chat. You didn't bring up another time to talk about Roe v. Wade. I put my sermon in the chat about Roe v. Wade and our God-given right to choose.
Amen.
So if you look back on the chat, you'll see the link to a YouTube video. And I encourage us to find words to talk about our God-given right as women to choose and own our bodies and the authority that we have over our bodies.
I'm so
Amen.
glad you
Thank
brought
you.
that up. I'm going
Thank
to
you.
also share in the chat, which I discussed with Reverend Vanessa earlier. There's a sermon out of Alexandria, Virginia, Alfred Street Baptist Church. I don't know if you all are familiar with that, but I'm going to share that with you. And he too takes on a position that I think is not typical of the
This
church.
is a woman's voice. So
Yes.
mine is a woman's voice. And women, thank God for the men who speak as advocates, but women need to hear women speak about our power.
That's right.
And our God-given authority. So I love the men who support us. May God be praised for their voices, but women need to take, and women of color, African women, need to speak proudly and calmly and lovingly about our bodies in every respect.
Gotcha.
Amen to that.
All right. Thank
Amen.
you. And did you want to respond to that in any way, Vanessa?
I just wanted to say thank God for you. Thank God for your sermon and your ministry and your courage to pioneer, because it takes courage. I talked about the scholarship, but it takes courage and it takes faith, because it is a faith walk when you're getting hit right, left, and center, to keep your eyes on the prize and keep on going. So thank God for you. And may God continue to bless you and bless all that you put your hand to.
All right. Thank you. We have with us also, let's see, Miss Roberta, you're on. You have a question?
Hi, my name is Roberta Estevan.
Hi.
I am an indigenous Afro. The original American was African, okay? And I am one of them, one of the few left. And I am known, I'm the goddaughter of Malcolm X, and my family is pretty well known throughout the country. But the thing that I like, that bothers me, is that too many so-called Christians, I'm considered the guidance of Maya, so-called Christians are still colonized or enslaved by the white Jesus mentality. And when you say, well, most of the Old Testament, as all we know, is taking place in Africa. So the thing that bothers me, like you said, the emphasis, first of all, with that cross, I read the out, which is the womb. All civilization stems from the womb of one African woman. Now we have to understand that the Black woman, the African woman, is the baddest around. And so many, I'm talking about AKAs, doctors, etc. Too many of the elite, now I'm quoting from my family are multimillionaires, etc., well known. And like you said, the emphasis needs to be on, we as Black women have a serious place, a serious role. I was a teacher, a computer engineer, music, a lot of that. But we as Black women have to take our place and stand out, because our Black men ain't doing it like they should. And we should be the leaders, because our children are suffering because they're not being taught to appreciate who they are as Africans. And we have to emphasize that. Like I happen to have been born with the original African, the original American was African with straight hair. Now they messed up my hair. I won't get into that. I had straight hair most of my life. But one thing, like you said, I don't care whether you're Christian, Muslim. If your God, Bible, and say God is love. Now, if you don't love yourself, don't tell me you love God, who made you. So this is what we have to emphasize to our children. Because you, in this country, I guess you know, it's under the control of satanic people. The people that run this country. And they have just about nullified us as Black women. They feel us more than anybody else. I don't know if you understand that. And we have contributed more than we appreciate. And I'm not a sorority, but they thought I might be. Can you believe one woman told me thought I was evil because I didn't believe in the white Jesus? That's scary. But anybody knows there's no way Jesus could have been white. I mean, but I'm saying again is we have to stand out. I don't care if you're Christian, Muslim, or whatever. If you don't love yourself, you don't love God, who made you as He wanted you. Whether you have straight, naughty, or whatever, black, white, light. We go through so many things, and so many of us feel inferior because of the hair. Even Africa, it amazes me. And one thing I was saying, how many of us know almost everybody, but Chinese, Arabs, the first one is our own men will call us nigger bitches. That's scary, huh? But like I said, whether you're Christian, I call myself, I believe the principle of Maya, I understand who wrote the Bible, etc., etc. So we know it all stems from us. And you ever read Dr. Ben, where he said, all of the Abrahamic religion origin is Africa. And so we better appreciate who we are, because they identified, that white Jesus enslaved too many people, and mostly us. Anyway, so I don't want to get into it too much, but I really enjoyed your knowledge of the Bible, and I will be tuning in anytime you have it again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I saw in
Thank
the
you.
chat, well, two things. One, Mrs. Esteban, did I hear you say that you're a descendant of Malcolm X?
No, he was my. I am a Dickerson. The original. Check this out. The first president of this country under the Articles of Confederation was my great-great-grandfather, a Dickerson, Henry Dickerson. You won't see that because they nullified. My great-uncle was Bishop William Fisher Dickerson. You might have heard of him. He was basically known. He founded Allen University. He got his PhD, was the first Black to get his PhD, or Indian, actually, he was Indian, from Yale University, 1878. But his father was the richest man in the country, Henry Dickerson. It's a lot of things that,
Well, you might be a future guest. You can enlighten us on all of that. Sounds very interesting.
But you know what bothers me? Like you said, they wrote us out of history ways we don't even know.
But fortunately, we got people like you who are still here to tell the story.
Yeah, I'm 79. I've been around a long time.
Somehow I think you're telling the story.
Like I said, I really enjoyed your knowledge of the Bible too, because I'm really into that. And like I teach, and one of my British people, because I believe in the school of the world, and what he said was, do you know who wrote the King James Bible? Do you know who King James was?
Leslie can answer that.
Who was King James? Anyway, he was Black. Okay. And not only that, the reason why the King James is so literate is because he had Francis Bacon and his writers to write it. And you know who Francis Bacon was?
That name
Shakespeare. And he was Black too. And one of my scholars, my young scholars, found that out for me.
All right, love it, love it, love it.
All right.
So
Now I have a question. I have a question. I'm sorry.
Who is that?
That's Cheryl. I'm sorry. For Ms. Esteban. I really would like to find out where that information is about Shakespeare being Black.
Yeah,
Because I remember
and
the
not
first
only
time
that, not only that, you can actually see it in the King James where he puts his name somewhere in it. I'll find out where actually you will see Shakespeare somewhere in that King James.
it's in the book of Psalms somewhere. It's actually separated shake and spear.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when you put them together, but yeah, I really would like to, because some people I know wonder why I'm so enthralled with him. And I think it's because of that one, and his writing is just phenomenal to me.
You know, and I don't know, Dr. Ben, he was from Ethiopia, and he wrote the origin of Abraham religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam were from Africa. He is so knowledgeable. If you ain't seeing YouTubes on that, you'll find a lot of stuff about. I studied under a lot of Black scholars too from the time I was young, because I am in prophecy, as somebody said. Anyway.
So Miss Esteban, I have your information, I'm guessing, from your registration. So you and I should talk, and perhaps we can have you back to talk on another program about.
Sure, I'd be glad to.
All righty. And where are you located?
I'm actually in Pensacola, New Jersey right now.
Oh, you right down the
Oh my
street.
goodness.
Where are you?
My neighbor.
I'm in Kansas.
Oh, you know, my family is originally from Woodbury, New Jersey.
Okay.
Arthur Waples.
I'm from Gloucester County, but we can talk later. I love it. All right. Thank you so much for your comments. Okay, Reverend Leslie, you got a question for the Reverend Vanessa?
Yes. Thank you so much, Reverend Wilson, for the awesome presentation. And I know everybody called you Reverend Vanessa, but I'm gonna call you Reverend Wilson. I call all females by their last name because males have a tendency to just call us by our first name, and they never acknowledge us on the same level as they are. So I make it a habit. All my female counterparts, when I'm in public, I will call you by your last name, so that we have the same leverage and the same honor and respect as our male counterparts. But I appreciate you and your Hebrew. I'm a Hebrew scholar. I study Greek too, but I love Hebrew, especially when we look at the words, because there are no vowels. Depending on who's interpreting it, who's translating it, you can make it what you want to make it for your situation. And I have preached about Job's wife being a woman who thought about blessings, and I have thought about the young girl in Song of Solomon, where they talk about her color. And just a couple of words that mean if, and but. And so I always say, ain't no buts about it. I'm Black and I am beautiful when I'm talking to young women. So I think the main thing about all of this is we have to keep getting the information out, because if you don't know, you don't know. But those of us who have this information, we have to be willing to get it out into the mainstream, and not only in our sermons, but in all the work that we do. So I appreciate you, Reverend Wilson, as a theologian, as an educator, and as a pastor. I appreciate you, and I will be looking for your work. And when I see one of your books, I'm gonna impress upon my class to buy your book so we can get your information out to the mainstream. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Reverend Harrison.
And Leslie, tell everybody where your church is. She's Leslie and I are from 4th grade together.
My church is historical Mount Zion African Methodist Episcopal Church, located in the town of Riverton, New Jersey. So we're right on the river line. Right on the river line.
Thank you, Leslie. I'm sorry I cut you off. Reverend Wilson.
Thank you so much, Reverend Harrison. And we are neighbors because I'm in Willingboro. But, you know, I wanted to say just how important that is. What you said, it is extremely important because with all these alphabets behind my name, and I got the whole soup can, right behind my name, and I will be with male colleagues and they won't even say Reverend. They'll just say Vanessa. And, you know, you have to just really keep them in check because when they call you by your name, I hear them, but I don't respond or turn around until they put a title on my name. And it is important that women, when we're in public spaces, so I thank you for that we call each other Dr., Reverend, Mrs., Ms., and ask people, what is your preferred title? Because I have too many years in for you to call me daughter, sister, it's a whole list of them. I won't go through it. You call me Dr. Wilson, Reverend Wilson, Ms. Wilson, you don't know me like that.
Yes.
And that's the end of the day. That is so important what you said, because I'm not your daughter and I'm not bringing you a glass of water.
Amen. I'm not your gal.
I'm not that one. Amen. I'll bring you a glass of water, but I'm not bringing them a glass of water.
Amen. Amen.
I agree with you. That's why I've been purposely calling you Reverend, but I've been saying Reverend Vanessa, but I stand corrected and I will say Reverend Wilson. And I do that, you know, because when we're amongst ourselves, you know, I feel like people, you earn these titles, right? And they're like, oh, you don't have to call me doctor. Like, yeah, I do, because you earned it, you know? So Reverend, doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, it's all, yeah, we earned it. And it wasn't easy. So, yeah, so. Thank you so much, Ms. Reverend Harrison, for putting us in check on that one. I appreciate it.
Oh, Reverend Doctor.
Oh, I'm
That's
sorry,
how we know.
Reverend Doctor Harrison. Okay. Thank you. Miss Stacy, I see your hand up. Did you have a question?
I do. I put it in the chat, but I didn't want it to get lost. What are your thoughts about the Strong's Concordance for translating the Hebrew and the Greek? Is that one that you use, or what do you recommend?
Strong was written a long time ago. Actually, Strong went to Drill. One of the things I use, one of the online resources, so let me back up. Any Bible keys are still keyed to Strong's, right? So you know the numbers, so it's still keyed to Strong's. But a good online source would be Bible Hub. I think it's Bible Hub. And you could actually go through it online, and it has the interlinear and everything right online, and it stays current. Because remember that all of this scholarship is constantly evolving, and as the technology gets better, we have access to more and more. So if you're using like a hardback Strong's, it's okay. It depends on the year that it was copywritten, right? So I would use an online resource like Bible Hub.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Somebody had put earlier in the chat something about a 5-week course that you teach. I think they said on Ruth. Did you see that question?
I didn't see it. Did
that was me.
Oh, that was you, Stacy?
Yeah, when you were talking about doing the presentation and then you talked about Ruth, I thought you said that you taught that you teach an 8-week study on Ruth, or was I hearing things? Maybe I was hearing that you're gonna teach one. I don't know.
No, I do. I teach one on Ruth from the perspective of the real estate, the transaction. We did it last semester, and it is 8 weeks. We go through 8 sessions. It's the book of Ruth is 4 books, but we take 2 weeks with each book, and we talk about the relationship between the women and the importance of the land transaction, because it was a land transaction. We talk about the custom and the language, so when Ruth laid down at Boaz's feet, what did that mean? She uncovered his feet. And again, that's something in the Bible, when we see the word feet, they're not talking about your little footsies with your 10 toes. You know, feet generally is very sexual. So she didn't uncover his toes. She uncovered something else. And I'll leave that to your imagination. But just think, if I wait until you get drunk, I wait until you ate, I wait until you get drunk, wait until you go to sleep, and you're an old man, and I'm a young woman, and I uncover your feet, and you wake up in the morning and say, how you get there? Just sneak out now. Don't let nobody see you. Think what you will, but that's what the text say. That's not, I didn't make that up. So let's look at it a different way and stop telling women to wait for Boaz. Ruth did not wait for Boaz. She had a mother-in-law who was a wise woman and told her how to get that man so she could get her real estate.
Are we allowed to take this class, or is this something that you teaching through?
No, it's a Bible study that I teach at my church. So
Okay.
yeah, so when I do the next one, I'm not sure what we're doing in the fall. I'll send it. Helen, can I send it to you?
Yes.
Okay.
And for those of you, Reverend Wilson, you're on the Google group. Do you get all those?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I can put it in there as well.
You can put it there and people will see it.
Okay, thank you.
I think, and if you're on this call and you're not on the Google group, let me know. I will add you to that list and you can post there and receive information there. Okay. Thank you so much, Miss Stacy. Good to see you again. Okay. Let's see. I cannot believe we have not heard from Miss Carol. I'm gonna call some of y'all out. I saw Anita Prather. Is she gone? She hasn't said a word. Some of y'all I just know, but I'm not. Lisa Richardson, I'm calling you out. Before we wrap it up, I just want to make sure if anybody has anything they want to share with this conversation, is now or later. I won't say never, later. Barbara Bracy is up there. I'm sure she has something of value to share with us.
I have a comment.
Go ahead. And who is that?
It's Cheryl.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Cheryl.
And the comment is this. And you know, women are thought of as, sometimes when they say, and the first woman this, and the first Black woman that, we are co-creators. Mankind comes through our womb. What greater attribute for those of us who are able to do that, or we all come, humanity comes through the womb of a woman. And what greater power is that? Or how great of power is that? And if we could just walk in knowing that.
That's a good question, particularly, and I'm not going to delve off into a whole nother conversation, but that's very important in this time when there's this effort to redefine what it means to be a woman. And you know, and men getting pregnant and all this kind of stuff. So that's a conversation for another. I don't know if that's where you were going, but that's what it triggered for me.
Well,
Hi,
I'm
Lisa.
Gloria Carroll.
Okay,
Okay,
Carol.
Good evening, ladies. Reverend Wilson, that was a wonderful message, and it was very powerful, and it needs to be taught more often because women, as you say, aren't recognized as God's daughters. We just recognize as a lot of things, and one of my pet peeves in the church is how women are accused of being responsible for men's perversion, you know, looking at them. And that makes me very angry because we aren't responsible for that. And once we know who we are, we don't have to be ashamed of our bodies or think that we cause the men to do anything. Because if we all are changed, it doesn't mean it's one gender change, men as well as change. So your message connects to all the things that I believed in, and it was very, very powerful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you.
All right. Thank you, Miss Carol.
And also, I lived in Willingboro for 20 years.
Oh, okay. So I'm at the Church of the Good Shepherd right here on Buckingham.
Oh,
Yes, I know. I lived in Garfield East.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And taught at Garfield East.
Okay. I'm sure you know some of my members. A lot of retired educators here.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else wanting to share some words before we go? Laurie, I see your hand is up.
Good afternoon. Hello. I come from Dr. Carter invited me. And I just want to say thank you, because every time I enter to one of these, groups or meetings, or I'm not sure what you guys call it, I feel like I'm sitting in a room of elders. And today has blown me away. I have learned a lot, because I was raised in the church, but everything was he, women, we weren't viewed. And the perspectives that you are given is something I feel and I knew, but to hear it is immeasurable. And I think it has changed my outlook in more ways than one. And someone commented about people addressing you by your first name and you correct them. I had been doing that recently, but today was a further affirmation that I was on the right track. So all I can say is I appreciate every one of you for the messages and everything and lessons that you've given, because I have a daughter. And so a lot of this I can pass on to her. So, I mean, that's a comment, not I don't have anything to offer other than comment, but thank you.
Your comment is much appreciated. Thank you so much. Yes.
Vanessa, I think I have that privilege, right?
Yes, Lisa.
I just want you to know, I did not know your journey, but I certainly appreciate it. And I was telling somebody about I'm not confused, but I'm a Christian. But my thing is, read the word for yourself. Don't let other people interpret it for you, and do the studying like you mentioned. If you feel you need to dig deeper, then do it for yourself. My thing is trust but verify. Mm-hmm. So we give too much power to the hierarchy in churches. I go to a non-denominational church, multicultural. Mm-hmm. But because sometimes I'm like, am I a Black Christian woman or am I a Christian Black woman? And so you go through, those like what's our priority? Are we a Christian first? So anyway, I just want to say I appreciate, what you're doing. I had no idea you was doing all this stuff. And I have to come down there one day, see what you're doing. All right.
Come visit us, please.
Love you.
I appreciate that. Love you, Lisa.
Okay. Take care.
We all got to come visit your church.
Yes.
Those of us who are close by. Yes.
Yep.
Anyone else wanting to? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I got to find my glasses, Linda. I left them in the car. I just got in the house.
Actually, that's all right, because I'm going to go see Vanessa. Vanessa is the only person other than Annie who can get me in the church.
But you know what? When she called you the most godly pagan, I texted you, Linda, on that one. I was driving too. I'm like, oh, that was funny. Vanessa, we're going to get her there. Don't worry about it.
She will come.
I know. She's going to come. But yeah, let me go get my glasses.
You guys have more confidence than I. But hey.
And then we're going to drag Helen in too.
Oh, I'll show up. I'm not into. I'll show up.
Hey, me and Vanessa been talking like this for how long, Vanessa? 40 years?
For over 40 years.
Yeah. Well, Linda, you didn't mention reading that book. What's the book? The Shack.
Yeah,
and your revelation on the Shack.
Lisa, tell her about the Shack. Tell them real quickly about the Shack book and the movie.
Well, I can't tell her, but it's really, you probably heard the book, The Shack, or the movie, and about this man's, I'll say, come to Jesus moment. For the characters, God is a Black woman in the movie and in the book. And I think Linda fell off her chair.
No, it was cool, because I'm like, if it's a guy, it's a woman, and it's a Black woman. She was cooking collard greens, and what else? Black eyed peas.
And I think there was another Reverend Michelle Armstrong, when she said, God, his name is I am. So he is what you need when you need him or her. That's God. We can see the problem with religion is we put God in a box. And I think Vanessa mentioned that if we look at how big God is and stop making him small the way we think.
That was me,
I'm gonna bring my
Lisa.
car keys. The way we think. You know what I'm saying? We got to keep him out the box. Now, I was listening to something on Job the other day, and actually, I was listening to the scripture, and basically, the whole conversation is about keeping God in a box, and God is bigger than a box.
I've been saying it.
So anyway, that's all I got to say. I get my car keys.
This has been really great. I just put in the chats for you all the sermon from Alfred Street Baptist Church. I was very moved by the position that Reverend John Wesley took. I think that you will be surprised. So if you have some time, copy the chat and listen to it. And thank you all. First of all, Reverend Wilson, thank you so much. You did a fantastic job. You held everybody's interest. You had lots of questions. I think people learned a lot. I know I did. So thank you so much. And I see one last question. Miss Love, what's your question?
It is not a question. I am one of the congregants that Reverend Wilson has opened my eyes in so many ways, and I am glad to hear the comments that you are making about Reverend Wilson. Since she's been at Good Shepherd, I just can't tell you, especially her Women of the Word Bible study, what a change it has made in my life. It, as we talk, it gave me relevance to some of the things that I believed in and have thought for a long time. She just helped to just foster what I believe. And so again, I just couldn't sit and not say that I think she is so awesome, and we're learning a lot, we're doing a lot, and come join us, listen and visit us, or whatever the case may be.
Sharing your pastor with us
So,
this
but
Sunday.
anyway, okay.
Yeah, thank you. So before we sign off, Reverend Wilson, do you have any closing remarks that you want to share with us?
I just want to say I really had a good time, and thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your affirmations. Thank you for your good wishes. Thank God for each and every one of you, and God bless you. And I have to say this because I need to stay at church. The other country that was omitted was Ghana. I also have Liberia, Nigeria, Ghana, and as well as the Virgin Islands, Jamaica, and South America. So we are an Africana church, and we love it, and we love one another, and God has blessed us. And so thank you so much, Helen, for having me. Is it okay if I call you Helen?
I think so.
This community, call me Vanessa, please, and Reverend Linda.
That rolls kind of hard off the ears.
Reverend Linda.
Yeah, that's funny, Vanessa.
Yeah, that is funny.
But you know what? I put on Facebook the other day, preach the gospel, but if you have to, use words. So Linda, your words and your deeds speak more than people who go to church every Sunday. Okay? So it's your act, it's your life.
Right.
That represents God, Jesus.
Exactly.
Well, what did I say before? It's like we only use 10%, and those miracles that we talk about from God are really us.
Yeah.
We can produce those miracles. And I believe that there's something more vast than just here on earth. There's a whole lot of stuff out there, and we're just that much.
Except, Linda, you have to stop referring to yourself as a pagan.
No, I like that.
No,
think
because
she
that's
likes
the
the
white man.
chapter.
That's the white
No,
man's
Oh, that's
term.
right.
Lola.
And that's
Okay.
what I said. I said that you got you, the people who are listening to me, have to step out of Eurocentric thinking. And when you do that and you go to universal thinking, you automatically negate that. So when I say pagan, I'm talking about people who identified planets before white people even had a telescope. And I think Vanessa talked about
But you
people
know,
having
but
people,
you do know
that people had the
not
time
the
to think
image.
about that.
That's not the image
No,
that is called
I know.
soul.
Right, because
I know.
that's the white man's term for them.
Yeah.
That's why.
Well, I'll find another term, but it'll be
Right,
comparable.
please.
Right.
Yes.
So we'll talk
Yes.
about it after this.
So,
It's
and
me and you,
would
Lola.
you join me to go to Reverend Wilson's church together? I don't go to church, but I would love to go to her church.
Linda's around the
Vanessa's
corner
gonna-
from me.
it's gonna be-
I'm gonna drive her. Okay.
We can have a field
Okay.
trip.
It's a
Wait,
little
wait.
too
We
far
can have
away.
when Black women gather field trip.
It would be, yeah, exactly.
Vanessa's church.
So join us on the fourth Sunday, I think fourth or fifth Sunday in October, when we will worship in pink and purple.
Oh my God.
As we, yes, as
Can we
we,
have a black and white day, please?
Linda,
No,
what does that
we are pink and
represent?
purple because we are looking at breast cancer awareness and pancreatic cancer. Pancreatic cancer.
Pancreatic cancer, yeah.
Right.
So I will send more on that, but we will worship in pink and purple, and because we're doing what God called people to do. We're ensuring that people are healthy.
Right.
We're not preaching about it. We're being about it.
That's what I'm saying. All right. Well, thank you, everybody who came. I'm just glad Vanessa has joined these calls. And, you know, me, Vanessa, Lola, Lisa, all of us went to law school together. And so we sort of, I mean, Vanessa and I reconnect here and there, and Lisa lives down the street. But Lola and I got together when Lola got her hand. I ain't seen Lola since Reagan. So it was. So, and Lola is, and I will tell everybody, if you need essential herbs or organic teas or any of that stuff, contact Lola. The girl is bad. Let me tell you, you need to contact her. So, essential oils, you know, COVID says you got to have eucalyptus and lavender to make sure your breathing is good. Lola can get it for you, and it's organic, and it's, you know, I'm spraying lavender on everything so I can get some more bottles.
All kinds of
Thank you
herbs.
for that, Linda. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All righty. So, Miss Vanessa, thank you so much for coming. I see. Wait a minute, Pearly Sue. We can't end without you. Go on now. Come on, Miss Gullah. Y'all remember her from a few weeks ago?
Yes.
I am so sorry that I missed it because my family eats at my house on Sundays at 4. We've been doing that since COVID. We didn't want to wait until holidays at the first. So that's why I was late getting on. But God bless you, Reverend Dr. Wilson, and all the ladies. I don't remember the young lady that said something about, you know, everybody's being birthed out of Black women. And if we don't get that message to the Cardi B's and the Beyonce's and the other ones that are feeling so much negative, you know, we can get mad at the male rappers, we can get mad at the white producers and all of that. But Black women, we have so much power. We got so much power. If we can birth all humanities out of us, we can turn this thing around for our young women, therefore turning this thing around for our young men. And we have to tell these stories, and we can't be afraid to talk to these young girls. You know, I had a lot of people, oh, them young, you can't say that, they're gonna cuss you. And so what? I'm gonna still be a size, when they finish cussing, I'm gonna still be a size 24. So it doesn't matter. We got to speak it. We got to speak words, because words are so powerful.
Thank you.
Got somebody elected for 4 years that was so unqualified from words. So negative words can produce what we see now.
Yeah.
So just think of the positive words, speaking into these young women, telling them that greatness is not a WAP, but you birth humanity. So you cannot define that greatness by your genital parts. So we have to get this message out to our young people. So I love what you're doing, Helen. I know everything is God sent. None of this stuff is a surprise to God. None
Amen.
of this stuff is a surprise to him.
Anita, I just want to tell you that I go into the prisons and the correction facilities and I do a back door. I go to the guys. And what you're saying, I tell the guys, because
That's right.
their expectations of what the women are trying to meet. So I encourage everybody, especially because you have a control group. I mean, I talk to people on the street all the time because that's how I was raised, intergenerational, which was not a word we use. But I approach them all the time and I've never been cussed out. If anything, they start smiling because I'm talking to them and I got gray hair.
They sure do. And I love prison ministry. I'm like you. I love, because when you go there, for them to come to see what I do is because they want to come. And they're ready to receive. And to make a long story short, I had a niece where my first cousin's daughter got married last October. Beautiful wedding, 14 bride, whatever, 16 guys, and these beautiful gowns, and got to the reception with folks 70 plus, pastors there, everybody, their parents, her parents, and these young girls went from dancing, line dancing, then they went dancing with the fellas. Then the fellas stopped because they got so raunchy. And the next thing you know, you saw two young ladies that were part of the bridal party humping the floor like Cardi B and what's her name, whatever that stallion lady. And I took their bouquets and I started whopping them. And I said, get up off of this floor. Do you know who you are? Do you realize that you are the mothers of all humanity? Get your behind up. Cut
And
the
they got
music
up.
off. They got up. Listen, I turned out to listen. That was the end of the reception.
That's fine.
And you
And so
on
we
film,
have,
I'm sure, doing that. That's a beautiful
we
thing.
have to tell them that
Don't
you're
be
more
afraid of
than
them.
body parts. You have to know who you are. And because the word of God said we perish because of lack of knowledge. So I'm telling you, Reverend Doctor, you are empowering women when we give them knowledge. And we can turn it around. We cannot let BET and MTV, all this TikTok stuff be where they get this terrible information. We have to counter that.
Thank you. Thank you. I love
it. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of young people, because they will pick up that you're afraid. Don't ever be afraid of them. I can't even understand how Black people could be afraid of young people. I just don't understand it. It's never, how could you believe in a higher power and be afraid of people who look like you?
Well,
Exactly.
I hear you. I hear you. All right,
And I say, if you see anything you don't agree with and you fail to speak up or act on it, then you're co-signing on it.
That's exactly right.
So that's what makes me compelled to say something or act. Because I say, if I walk away, I don't do something. Right. So.
All right, folks, this has been fantastic. I'm going to thank Reverend Wilson for being here again, and welcome her to come back. Leslie, I put in the chat that you are also welcome to come speak to us. Pearly Sue, that would be Anita Singleton Prather down in the corner. I'm telling you, I'm still getting good feedback from the time that you spent with us, so I look forward to you coming again as well.
God bless.
Yeah, so many people were educated. She was on, what, 4 weeks ago, and she talked about Gullah and what we do.
Gullah land.
Yes.
So yeah, a lot of people learn. Wait, you were here, right, Vanessa? You were on that call?
I don't think so. I think that was the week I was traveling.
Yeah, you would know. You would know if you were there.
I would love that. I love that culture.
But y'all come on down December the 1st through the 3rd. We're doing a Galaxy Island Christmas celebration. Christmas like you've never seen it before.
So you are on my Google group, Pearly Sue. So when you text stuff to me, if you put it on that listserv, you'll get it to a lot of women at one email.
Miss Helen, I'm gonna text it to you. I'm not that computer savvy and all that social media. I'm texting it to you. You lucky I'm on this Zoom. I'm learning how to do this stuff.
All right,
but I will send it to you.
I'll get it out there for you. Not a problem. And on that note, I'm going to thank everybody. I'm going to stop the recording, but ask you to hang around for a few minutes just so I can update you on what's coming up next. And thank you again for gathering with us. And as we all know, when Black women gather, amazing things happen. And we certainly had a
Yes.
today. Again,
Yes.
with Reverend Wilson and all of you. We love our guests, but you ladies in the in the audience on the Zoom, you make it what it you also make it successful. And of course, Linda's always here to bring us some flavor. So thank you, Linda, for being consistent and helping me find guests sometimes. And again, as I said with Reverend Wilson, if any of you are on this call and you have a subject that you think is of interest or just a guest that you want us to invite, let me know and we'll make that happen. So on that note, I'm going to say good night. We will not be here next week because we're on the every other week situation. And then the following week is not Thanksgiving. Oh my goodness. What is it?
Labor Day, right?
Labor Day.
Yes. So we will
Labor
be
Day.
again
It's
on
Labor Day.
9/11. Woo, woo, woo. And we will talk about where we were
Yes.
on 9/11 and that's going to prove to be an interesting conversation. So on that note, I'm going to stop recording, but ask you to hang around for just a few more seconds. And thank you again, everybody. And we'll see you again, Reverend Wilson.